Hey friends, it is time for Web Design Review. This is our Coding the Web textbook review for lessons 4 and 5. And I'm in Thimble with just a basic little document here, basically the default document that's set up. I've removed something just to illustrate some concepts, but basically we've just got a heading and a paragraph, a heading 2 paragraph, heading 2 paragraph, so just some basic stuff here. In lesson 4, we get into what we call getting colorful with styles. So there are 3 different ways to do styles. And in your book, if you go to the page on styles, we talk about the 3 different ways. So you have your external style sheet, an internal style sheet, or what's sometimes called an embedded style sheet, and an inline style. And an inline style is what we refer to as a style attribute. So a style attribute would be added inside the tag. So inside this strong tag, for instance, I can add an attribute, and you should recall an attribute is this thing up here. It's a part of a tag that's after the selector. It has a space and then something equals something in quotation marks. So to add the style attribute, it's style equals and then a set of quotation marks, and then in here, however you're going to style it. So in lesson 4, we introduce you to background color and color as styles. Background color would change the color behind the words. So when I type in background color, I put a colon, and then after that, I put the value of the color. So say red, I put the word red, and then a semicolon. A style follows the format property, colon, value, semicolon. So in this case, background color of red. And then to change the color of words, I'm just going to space bar after the semicolon and add that one. To change the color of words, it's just simply the word color. So again, property, colon, value, semicolon. That's the proper format for a style rule. Okay? Property, colon, value, semicolon. And we are styling the strong selector in this example. So now I've got that particular strong. But you know, what if I had a bunch of strong tags everywhere, all over my article? Okay, so say I've got some here. Then that would be better served by using an internal style sheet. An internal style sheet goes in the head. An internal style sheet, to be honest, I don't really use much at all, because an internal style sheet would really only be super effective with a 1-page website. And I mean, generally, if you have a whole website, it's multiple pages. But this would style things for an entire page. So for example, if I wanted the heading 2s, the yes and the woohoo, to be red, instead of putting an inline style here and an inline style here, I put it up here. Now, because these are between style tags, you don't type the heading in tags. So you put they call it a selector, so what's the tag? H2. And then you put a curly brace. It's that little thing right there. It's over by your P key. And then you list those rules. So the property, colon, value, semicolon. So if I wanted to make it red, I would put color, colon, red, semicolon. And notice up here in the style section, it gives us helpers that pop up, which is awesome. And we can see those. And so now notice they are both red. Now I could have done that down here, but then if I changed my mind, I wanted them to both be green, I would have had to change it in 2 places. And now I don't have to. But what if I wanted one of them to be red? Well, I can override a style that's up here in this internal style sheet by using an inline style. So I could still come in here and say this one's going to be red by adding an inline style inside the tag. So these are really only used if you just want to do it in one place, like say this one strong place on the page, or if you want to override one that's already on the page by doing that. So sometimes, like if the H1 at the top of the page, you want it to be centered, but you wouldn't want every H1 everywhere to be centered, then you could center this one. So to center, again, it's a style attribute. And then to center text, it's text align. And there's never space bars in that. So it's text dash align, colon, and then the value. And the value would be left, right, or center in this case. And there we go. Now my heading is centered. Okay, so that's kind of the general gist of how those work. As far as colors go, there are 140 color names that are hex color names. So you can use the code for the color, which starts with a hashtag, and then it's 6 characters. The characters range from the number 0 up to 9, and then A, B, C, D, E, F. So it's 0 to F. The first two stand for, like this F and 0, stand for the red values. It's RGB. The second two stand for the green values, and the last two stand for the blue values. So something that's blue, you can see, is 0000 FF. So that blue is turned all the way up, and all the other colors are turned all the way down. Zero's like turning it down, like volume 0. So it's turned all the way down, and F turns it all the way up. It's on the other end of the spectrum. So RGB, red, green, blue. So red, straight red, would have FF in these first two spots, and then zeros all the way across. You can use the color names. So I could use this color aqua if I wanted to. You can use the name, and the name doesn't require a code. So I could say here, this needs to be aqua, and it's going to be aqua. I'll take this extra one out here. Okay, and so there's that one. All right, so there's that. Next up, we're going to look at other color modes. So I've talked about the hexadecimal color, which starts with a hashtag. And then there's two other color modes other than using the names. One of those is RGBA, and one is HSL. RGBA stands for red, green, blue, and then A stands for alpha. Alpha has to do with transparency. A 0 is transparent, and a 1 is not transparent at all. So if we were going to go in here in RGBA colors, we can go to a color picker, and you can see these values. So again, the first number before the comma is the red, just like it was before, RGB, and then this would be whether it's see-through or not. You can't tell if this is see-through or not, but like if you had a background behind it that was like, you know, a picture, you'd be able to see the background through it a little bit if you have these turned down. So red, green, blue, alpha. And then HSL is the other one, and that's hue, saturation, lightness, alpha. And hue is basically a degree on the color wheel. So I don't know anything about color wheels because I don't teach art, but color wheel, HSL, you can see on the color wheel where these colors are at. So, and I didn't know that before I taught this stuff, but that's how that is. So 0 is red, for example. And there are websites too that will show you those. Like here's a color picker for HSL. I can come in here and it'll tell me what the codes would be. So this is pretty green. So the R is 0. The green is turned all the way up. Well, not all the way up. Well, yeah, I think it is all the way up. And then there's a little bit of blue in it. It's a bluish green, sort of. And then 1, it's not see-through. So if we turned that down, this is opacity, see, it would make it see-through, and you'd be able to see through it. So this is a pretty cool little website for HSL color picking. All right, so those are your HTML colors. And like I said, you can use those with colors for backgrounds of text or for the actual color of words. That's pretty much all that's in Lesson 4. Lesson 5, we got into some additional formatting elements. So mark was one of them. Mark is kind of like, highlighting basically. So if I put a mark in here around the word learning, then it's highlighted in yellow. So that's mark. The other two that are in this chapter that are very similar to each other are sub and sup. That's superscript and subscript. So if I say I am awesome, and then I put a superscript, superscripts fly high, right? They're like Superman. And so there it is. Now it's kind of hard to tell, but superscripts are not only up, the baseline is shifted up, they're also smaller. It's a little bit of a smaller font. A subscript goes below, like so, and it does the exact same thing. It's smaller, but its baseline shifted down. So that's basically subscript and superscript, so they're kind of neighbors. Now if you just want to make words smaller but not flying or sinking, you would use the tag called small. Now there is not a tag called big or large or whatever, but there is a tag called small. So I could say we are all awesome. Now small is typically used like in a footer. So see, it's a little bit smaller. It's basically like one size smaller. So like if we were in Word, like these are 12, this would be 10 kind of thing. So that's what that does. And then finally, the last two new tags in this unit are DEL and INS. DEL stands for delete, which actually is just a strike through in Word. That's what we call it, which is a line through the word. So the words don't actually disappear. They just get a line through them like this. And insert, I'll put way up here for insert. Notice what it does is it underlines it to show that it was like added in, so to speak. I never ever use the insert one, to be honest. But DEL and INS are DEL and insert. Delete and insert. Delete is strike through. Insert just underlines whatever that is, basically, to show that it's been inserted later. All right, HTML tags list D, on the bottom of page 14 here, we have some additional formatting of text with styles. So text align center, I already mentioned. Right to left, that's basically like aligning it, right? So that one I don't really use a whole lot because I just center align. Letter spacing and word spacing are two that are pretty common. I use letter spacing a lot more than word spacing. But if I'm up in here, I would say letter spacing, it's got a dash, say 5 pixels. Notice now these are spaced out like this. 50 pixels, they're going to space out a whole lot more. Word spacing would space the words. So I only have 2 words on the woohoo, but like if I space this out 30 pixels, see those two space out more from each other. So again, when you put in these numbers, you can't space bar between the number and the measure. You have to have, or you can't, don't put a space bar in there. They have to be right there hugging the number. Okay, so that's that one. Line height is like line spacing. I have this one, I guess. So this paragraph, I could set this to have a style of a line height. And if you did a 2, it would be double spaced. If you did a 3, it would be triple spaced. And that's how that works for line height. Vertical align, that doesn't really matter just yet. That's how you get a superscript or a subscript. They're vertically aligned top or bottom. Text decoration is one we'll use eventually. That's how you would take like an underline off of a hyperlink. So far we haven't done hyperlinks. Text indent, that's tabbing. And again, you give it so many pixels. So if I want all my paragraphs to be tabbed a certain amount, I would do text indent and then, 30 pixels or whatever. And now all of my paragraphs are tabbed. And that's text indent. Text shadow is another one. It has 3 parts, and they're all separated by space bars. This has to do with the horizontal and vertical position, so like scoots the shadow over and down. And this is the color of the shadow. So text shadow, if I were to put that on my headings, text shadow, and then I give it a number. I'll do like an obnoxious number so that you can see it, and we'll do black. There you go. So that's text shadow. You wouldn't normally use it from that far off, of course. And then text transform, that's the last one here. Text transform is how you would make something like all capitals. So I could come into this heading and say text transform. And then, oops. Oh, actually, this is going to be small capitals on this one. Got to remember the right words. Oh, here we go. Text transform uppercase. If you just put capitalize, it's only going to capitalize the first letter of each word, which already was. But uppercase will capitalize all of it. So it's either uppercase or capitalize. Uppercase or capitalize. That's what text transform does. So if it's already in all capitals, it wouldn't do anything. It can't change it. So anyway, that is the first part. I've got a second part of this lesson to go over an external style sheet. So we'll hit that in just a minute. But that gets you through most of our lesson 4-5 review. We'll hit font styles and how to do an external style sheet in the next review.